This is In Touch with Terri, a power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetics industry.
I just discovered your podcast, and I feel like I've hit a gold mine.
She's our inspiration.
This is someone who's got a lot of knowledge. She's been there, done that.
Terri Ross is a former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, founder and CEO of Terri Ross Consulting, and co-founder of the 4S Summit, a sales and business mastery workshop for aesthetic professionals.
Terri is always approachable, always there for you.
It's nice to have somebody in your corner that can say, I got it.
In Touch with Terri will bring you solutions to increase operational and employee efficiency and practice profitability. Plus, feature some of the top industry experts as guests.
Terri, your courses and your podcast are just so helpful.
She made me feel like I could do this.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Now, here's Terri.
Hey, tribe, how are you? I am so glad to be back. This is crazy. This is the last episode of season 9, my 100th episode of In Touch with Terri. Don't make me cry. I could bring tears to my eyes. And it's crazy that February 14th on Valentine's Day, I don't know how the hell that happened. 5 years ago, this podcast was launched. So this is a big one. Please sit down and I don't know, maybe get a tissue box, get a glass of wine or water, and maybe a pen and paper, because this is really going to be a vulnerable podcast about my life, my background, and some inspirational messages for you guys. And what I've done, because I thought it was so indicative of and appropriate, is to have Tim Cicciarelli, who is my dear friend, my producer of this podcast, interview me. So Tim, hey honey, thank you for being here with me and just being on this journey.
Well, Terri, first of all, what an honor it is to actually be a kind of a guest on your podcast after recording 99 episodes. It only took me 100 episodes to get on the podcast. So thank you very much. But it is such a joy, an honor, and a privilege to see you hit this milestone. You talked about tissues, and listen, I'm a wear my heart on my sleeve kind of guy. I might get emotional too, because, you know, you and I met, this is 2025. We met 10 years ago, 2015. And we started working together because I did videos for you when you were back at Lasky Aesthetics in Beverly Hills, remember?
Oh boy, do I remember. And if we show some of those clips, guys, and we might do that, by the way.
We should. You know, I wish we had some of the footage that didn't make final cut, because those were some funny takes. But full disclosure, I do got to tell you, I'll tell you what Terri did love to do after a few shoots together. And it was so funny to me how, Terri, you would be so nervous during these videos that we would, because you're such
I know what you're going to say.
You're you do know what I'm going to say, but you're such a dynamic personality, a strong personality. And the minute the camera would come on, you would almost freeze up a little bit. And it blew my mind, because you're so confident and so charismatic. And so what Terri wanted to do was what? Go grab some tequila shots, and then we would do... Not me. I had to keep things in focus, but but that seemed to do the trick, didn't it?
Listen, I know. So for you guys, anybody camera shy, because you got to show up. You have to show up.
Yeah. Well,
a couple shots and it works every time.
You didn't need the tequila shots for long, because you're a natural in terms of taking direction and then, more importantly, presenting the material that you knew your audience or the customers of Lasky at that time needed to hear to best serve them. And you're a salesperson, but you care about the person buying from you, which is why you've been so successful in sales. And then that's where you started, isn't it? I mean, before you were a managing partner at Lasky. If you don't mind, Terri, for those that might have just discovered you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background that led you up to becoming a managing partner at Lasky Aesthetics in Beverly Hills?
Yeah, thank you. My journey was not an easy one. There was no one path and one road, and there were some hardships. But I think that the defining moment really for me was my transition through life. You know, I grew up in Michigan in the Midwest. I went to medical school. I really decided, I thought I wanted to be a doctor my whole life, like a pediatrician. And quickly I realized that I loved medicine, but I loved sales. And I had never sold anything. So I had friends in the industry, and they're like, you really need to go get some sales experience. So my first sales job was selling cell phones. like with Verizon way back in the day. You remember those big bag
Oh,
phones?
the bag phones. Come on, of course. Younger people listening are like, what? You put your phone in your bag? What do you mean?
I know, you're like, what?
That's a bag phone.
Like, what the hell is this? But this is serious because there are a lot of people that ask me, how do you break into sales? How do you break into aesthetic sales? And it's hard. And let me just preface this. Like, sales is not for everyone, but it's what I do, teach, love now in the aesthetic space, what I'm passionate about. But you have to have a like hunter mentality. I mean, this is like knocking on doors, cold calling. Every no leads to a yes. The shit's really hard. But I've studied sales and psychology and why people buy things and the value and the perception of what that really is. And so that shaped my life, basically working for Fortune 500, shifting into medical aesthetics in 2007, actually working for companies like Medicis, which is now Galderma, Zeltiq, which is now Allergan. So I did that, and I had a couple hard knocks in those spaces, which was all about resilience and bouncing back. And
well, you say resilience and bouncing back. I'd like for you to go back even further because, listen, like you mentioned at the beginning, more than you're just producer, you're a wonderful friend of mine. And we've had many conversations about our personal lives and gone through many things together as friends over the last decade. And you were vulnerable enough, which is one of the things that made us really wonderful friends, I believe, is that here's this strong dynamo powerhouse. For those of you who have not met Terri Ross or seen her in person, you hear her in the podcast. And when you see her, she's a dynamo. And you would think somebody with that type of confidence and that type of intelligence and the ability to present information and teach and connect with people, that maybe you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, as it were. Like life might have been easy for you and everything was laid out for you. Not so much the case. And I do think it's important, Terri, that you share with your audience a little bit about your background. Now, I know you're vulnerable with your close people, and I've heard you many times on this podcast, in particular your solo episodes, where you are vulnerable. That wall comes down. So please, if you don't mind, if I could pry past that wall a little bit and let you share with your audience a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. And I used to not want to share these things because you always think you're going to be judged. And thank you, Tim, for asking. But I do think that perception is not always reality. And what you guys see about my life now, it wasn't always like this. I did grow up, blue collar Midwest family. My mom, she was born deaf. She's legally deaf. And my father, later in life, my grandmother passed away and then he started drinking. So I grew up with an alcoholic dad who became recovering, thank God. And I have two siblings, but that was my life growing up. And they were hairdressers, very successful in Michigan, had several hair salons. So I did grow up Catholic family, strong values, and really being taught work ethic and saving money. But on the flip side, they didn't understand why I wanted to go to college and why I didn't want to be a hairdresser. And then growing up, not really connecting with my mom on the level that I think most, mothers and daughters do, and kind of seeing my dad, functioning alcoholic, go through this phase for many years, actually. And then kind of feeling like I was on my own and having to make decisions, hard decisions. Like, was I going to go down this path of least resistance and woe is me and oh my God, this is my life. And I had a good life. I had a great life, but I could have went down a very different path. And instead, I was like, hell no way. I worked since I was 14. Oh my God, I worked at Costco, like at Sam's Club. Do you guys know?
Me too. Stock shelves at 3:00 in the morning.
Seriously,
Right.
I don't even know, but my family taught me how to save my money, and I bought my first car at 16. So I was a hustler and I was scrappy, and I saw how hard my parents worked in a family of not a traditional family of the dynamics, seeing my dad take care of my mom. I mean, she's legally deaf. She can't talk on the phone. She sounds like that actress, Marlee Matlin, right? So if you look at her, she can read lips insane. But thank you for asking. I know no one's life is perfect. And there is no silver spoon. I wasn't handed a bunch of money and Ivy League school. That wasn't it. I put myself through college. I paid for every single thing on my own. I hustled, but I made hard decisions because I wanted a different life. I wanted a better life, and I wanted to do it on my own and make a difference.
Well, the reason I asked you that question, Terry, is because for those that follow you on Instagram or seen you speak across the country or have worked with you, I mean, it looks like you live a really wonderful life, and you do. I know you well enough to know that you do. But I think for you to be an inspiration to somebody wanting to get started in the medical aesthetic industry, that they go, oh, well, but I don't come from a background like Terri Ross, so that'll never be me, right? And by you sharing that story, yes, it can be them. And to me, that was one of the most beautiful things about your story when you were kind enough to share that with me. And thank you for sharing that with your audience, because I do think it's important for them to get to know who you are. And listen, we've done this podcast now for 5 years. A lot of people go like, yeah, well, I know Terri, but there's new people coming into the industry at all the time. And boy, wouldn't it be terrific to start that trajectory with someone like you to train them the right way before they make a bunch of mistakes, which we'll go over in just a few minutes. So I really appreciate you sharing that story. I didn't mean to backtrack a little bit, but I think it's very important to do that. So you told us a little bit about your journey and how you got into sales and how you were incredibly successful in sales. So let's jump back to that timeline then. So, and how that led you to working in medical aesthetics.
Well, look, and thank you, Tim, and thank you everyone for allowing me this space, this safe space to be vulnerable with you. And I hope that my story, I hope this message for anyone listening allows you to just be like, hell yes, I can do this, because it really is just about strength and vulnerability and tenacity and just mental toughness that every single day you can make a difference. So look, even in my career, I was really fortunate. After getting my sales feet wet with Verizon, I crushed it. I did really well, but I busted my ass. I mean, I would stay up late. I read every night. I listened to a million books about sales, and I just couldn't fail. Like, I just didn't want to fail. And so I worked harder than everyone else. And so that first year, I made President's Award. I, won a bunch of awards, and then I got my first job at Johnson & Johnson. It took me weeks to get that job. And if you know J&J, it was Ethicon Endo was the division. And I say that because it is very hard to get a job in device. And I was selling radioactive seeds for prostate cancer and machine in the OR for benign prostatic hypertrophy. And I was so humbled and so honored to get that job and beating out everybody else. And so I worked for J&J. I worked for Merck Shearing Plow. I worked for an endocrinology company. I've basically worked in every therapeutic area selling something. And then as to your question, Tim, I got into aesthetics in 2007 in Los Angeles, being the West Coast director for Medicis. And I thought, God, I'm living in Los Angeles. Beverly Hills is one of the top, aesthetics places in the country.
World.
And why would they, world. Why would they hire me? I literally was working for an endocrinology company as a director for human growth hormone. I mean, for kids with short stature. I had no aesthetic experience. It took me 6 months to get that job.
Tenacity.
My God, you don't even know. But all I can say is you talk about one of the proudest moments in my life, and that was one of them, because I thought, my God, there was a million other people that had been in other aesthetics companies that could have got that job. And I did. At the time, that region was ranked 10 of 10. I took it to number 2 of 10. And same, I had a team that when I started literally was like, why should I even listen to you? And why should I respect you? You don't even have aesthetic experience. And that is how it was. That's a hard place to be when you're the leader and you're the boss and you're responsible for multi-millions of dollars. And then your team doesn't, think that you can help them. And so I've had to overcome hurdles with even being a leader to show people that I walk the walk, I talk the talk, what you see is what you get, and I will hustle my ass to learn every single thing about this space that I can, so I can support you as your sales leader to help you become even a better sales rep in the space.
It's wonderful to hear that part of your journey, that big leap, right? That leap of faith that you had to take, faith in yourself, to become a leader within an industry you didn't really know a whole lot about because you were still learning it. And then still to develop the respect of those that are working for you in that environment. So then you're now in aesthetics. What was your next step at that point?
Well, my God, I mean, that was the start of this most amazing journey. So I spent a couple of years at that company. And then I was recruited over to Zeltiq, which is now Allergan, to launch Cool Sculpting in the US and Canada. And you talk about a grind. I mean, super honored. I think I was one of the 8th people hired pre-IPO, like shuffling that device around on my own. Now I backtracked from I was a director, but there was no sales reps, and I'm selling cool sculpting on my own. And you talk about hard. There was a million devices pre-cool sculpting that said they reduce fat and get rid of fat that were like shitty. So people's perception of that technology was like, oh my God. But I've always made decisions based on my gut and based on passion for something that could be supported by science. So I did that for a little while. And then, look, I had a baby, my beautiful daughter, Sloan, later in life. And I did need to do fertility. I did 2 rounds of fertility. And the doctor was like, you can't be gone like this. You can't travel 80% of the time. And so I had to make a really tough decision to quit that life, like my corporate life.
A lucrative life at that as well.
Yes, a lucrative life, a life that I was somebody, like I was seen and I was a leader. And I worked so hard to be basically also one of the only female directors in both those companies. And my baby having a child was important to me, but at the same token, like I did lose myself. I lost myself. I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was going to do. I am not someone, I didn't just want to be a mom. It was a really difficult time for me. Same token, I was happy. And I remember, no joke, I literally pushed my daughter out, 3 pushes, thank God. And my phone rang and it was Paul Nassif. Like literally, it was world-renowned facial plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills, who, by the way, I had been consulting for. And no joke, I like just have the baby. And here he is. We're talking about business in the hospital bed. And we're talking about business.
How long after Sloan enters the world is this phone call coming through? We're talking
maybe an hour.
Oh my God.
No joke. And I don't care because I am like,
and
my
she
word,
answers it.
my people.
she
and I answered the damn phone. Paul was actually one of the first people to come to my house to see the baby. Look, it was amazing because during my time of going through the fertility, I was super blessed to be recruited or called by 2 world-renowned surgeons, Dr. Garth Fisher and Dr. Paul Nassif. And this is like literally 2010, 2011, who asked me to work with them. Like, would I help them build their med spa? And even having those 2 guys that I knew from my corporate life call me, to believe in me, to give me this opportunity. Now, mind you, I wasn't a consultant. But what they did see in me is that I was calling on their practices, for 4 years. Mm-hmm. They knew me, they knew my style, they knew my leadership, they knew the changes I made in their practice, they knew how I sold, how the team sold. They trusted in me. And they gave me this opportunity, which is what led me into being a consultant. So I'm so honored and grateful to them. That led into me also getting a call from Andy Frankel and Mark Rubin, some big names, Les Stevens, like some big names in Beverly Hills, who also had a med spa. And they said, look, we know you had a baby. I don't know if you want to do this, but we have this underperforming med spa. And this is a really important story because there are a lot of people as we get into my journey in my career about what I do now and why I do it, mm-hmm. is they have this underperforming med spa. And they said, look, we will make you a managing partner. You take it over. You run it. You're an owner now. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, one, I never say no because I'm scrappy. And I always seek opportunities that I can learn. And so I knew I had business acumen and salesmanship and led teams. I knew how to do that. I didn't know how to work inside of a med spa, but I took on the challenge. And that's when, we met shortly thereafter, Tim. We started working together and I busted my ass. I remember sitting in the first AmSpa meeting with Alex Tiersch. There was literally 10 people. That's it, in some small room in a law firm in LA. I was like, I will learn every single thing I can. I will study. I will go to every conference on my own, pay. I will do whatever the hell it takes for me to be the best consultant I can and not some bullshit. Because I think everybody can just slap a consultant on the back of their name. And look, I'm going to be bold about it because it bothers me that that's not true. But I did everything in my power to be the best owner and to prove to these doctors why they hired me and what I could do for them. And then here you are. And then you came into my life.
Well, when I came into your life, I'm just a vessel that took this dynamo, this personality, this wealth of knowledge and this ability to communicate and put you on video to promote your med spa in Beverly Hills, and all the different modalities that you had. And that's what it was. And that's where it started with what you and I did and your ability to communicate through the lens to an audience that wasn't in front of you. And that was where I saw this evolution of I was there while I'm setting up my cameras and micing up your clients. And I can see you you're like this tornado running around and just running things. And it was really fun to watch and be able to see this become a well-oiled machine. And we worked for years together at that med spa. So I was able to see you grow as well. And then the time came where you were putting more of your energy into Terri Ross Consulting. And that's when you could see, okay, finally, all of this hard work that Terri has, you just heard about, folks, this hard work, this tenacity, this never say no, just make things happen. And then taking that knowledge that you, Terri, acquired and then found a way to present that material to other people that didn't have the experience that you had. I mean, when people hire you, they're paying for you doing all that other stuff that they don't have to do. Right. And I remember when you first put your first workbooks together, they were this thick. If you can't see, it's like 3 inches thick. You did all of that. And I remember you, if you don't mind me sharing, when you called me and you said, I'm taking that leap. I remember I was driving down the 210 and you were nervous and excited. We call it nerve-sided in my family. And even though you had that little bit of, oh my gosh, what could I be doing? You did it anyway as a single mom. Tell us a little bit about that leap.
Thank you, Tim, for number one, showing up in my life in a time that, video and being present and getting out messages was so important. And you really are. You are not just a dear friend to me, you're family. And you've pushed me, you have supported me, you have always made me feel comfortable from day one, staring into like a blank camera, trying to get a message across when I felt so stupid and I couldn't do it. And it's a hard thing to do. So you are such an inspiration to me and my success because you've allowed me and you've seen me grow this whole time to be where I am today, to show up on big stages and be a keynote and to do videos and just know the power behind that. So thank you so much. That leap was, I grinded. I stayed at that med spa for about 4.5 years. And, it was a small space. We grew into a bigger space. We went from 2 people to 11 people and it scaled and it sold to a huge chain. So really am blessed to have gone through that opportunity of that acquisition, but more importantly, developing what is so critical for what I do today in the world. And that is really understanding why the business of aesthetics is critical. It's a business. Mm-hmm. It's not just you're a surgeon or you're a med spa. It's a business. And why sales and operations and financial decisions are critical and what are the growth strategies that people need to do. And so I always talk about why people would hire me. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, Tim. They hire me you're paying for expertise and you're paying for time. You could try to do it on your own, but I can get you there further faster. And so when you talked about me taking the leap of faith, I knew firsthand from working with all these amazing practices in Beverly Hills, and then the one that I had on my own, hiring people and seeing the deficit, seeing the deficit of whether it was providers, NPs, PAs, doctors, front desks. I saw the deficit. There was no training. There isn't any training for them to go. And thank God I had the experience I had, which from a humble place does give me the credibility to do what I do today. And I'm like, this is not okay. This is bullshit, right? The calls suck. Like they're in the consultation. Nobody knows what's going on. They couldn't convert people. And it was like a mess. And so I equally have always invested in my career. So I hired a coach who had sold her business to Bill Gates, by the way, and she was very instrumental in my life. Yeah. I mean, right? You talk about shit. I'm like, let me sell something to Bill Gates. And I sat with her for months and days, like on the floor. But that's how my sales training curriculum was developed in 2018. I think you were with me
What?
in AmSpa.
Yep.
We launched it on stage and it went gangbusters. You were there. We were shooting podcasts. And I have so many clients that I could name names that have been with me since the beginning, that have just been supported me in my career. But, TRC just took off. It took off. And I've kind of become known as the sales trainer in aesthetics. And then I was blessed to be a very big part of AmSpa. I had a company with Bertadato AmSpa and myself, Amsperdato. So I have just been in the trenches in this space, a very big but deep level, which has again allowed me to do what I do today and to have built the trust and the value that I'm able to give back to the clients today.
Well, Terri Ross Consulting has taken on many shapes and forms over the last few years. Many wins, a few losses, and anytime there was a dip or a change, I don't know, just knowing you like I know you, I always just felt you're going to bounce back and you're going to bounce back quickly. And you did, very quickly, and you continue to. And that is inspiring to me as a solopreneur as well. And even though we're in completely different industries, boy, the value that I get just from producing your podcast alone and filming you for I filmed all of your curriculum all those years ago. And so it was a free education on my part, but we always had fun doing it, and creating this was always just a labor of love. And it really has evolved over the last few years. And now you've made it to a point where your curriculum is incredibly scalable for you and accessible for more than in the past. So there's two more questions I have following this one for this episode as we celebrate your 100th episode. But before we start to wrap it up with those two final questions, tell us a little bit about the evolution of TRC over the last few years and where you are now and how people can find your knowledge and have access to it that quickly.
Well, I will sum it up because it's a good story, but a long story. But, TRC was developed in 2012 and it has evolved into what we've just been discussing, building curriculums around sales training and financial data, really. You can imagine now I'm moving forward and I'm working with clients. The med spa sold, I'm being retained. Still, again, in the midst, I get a divorce. I'm a single mom, but I'm now able to travel around the world teaching people. And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit. I mean, I'm sure everybody had that moment of what the hell are any of us going to do? But you can imagine, you asked me the question, how did I pivot in that? What were my trials and tribulations? Because it wasn't just this beautiful straight line and journey up to Yosemite. It wasn't. It was winding roads and ditches, freaking potholes. And
watching you pivot was a masterclass in how to pivot. And here's why. And I know this because I know you, because you fucking had to, because it's beyond just your career, because of Sloan. I saw that. I watched you. So talk about the pivot, and then we're going to talk about Sloan, because that's very important as part of the story.
Yeah. This is crazy. I had literally just came off the medical spa show. And March of 2020? I think they had it early in the year,
They had it in January, early February.
Just came back. I mean, I can remember this so distinctively. I get sick with COVID and I'm really freaking sick. I'm really sick. And then I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm a single mom with a nanny to help me take care of Sloan. I traveled so much. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, who is going to hire me? No one's going to hire me. Who's going to hire me when the practices were shut down from anywhere from 2 to 4 months, maybe? I was terrified. Yeah. I had just brought on another consultant and I don't even know what I don't even know what I was thinking, but in my life, I'm like, I've had a very successful career. I've made a lot of money and it was never, ever, ever about the money. I've reduced jobs. I've taken promotions. I've made less. I've been a sole contributor. I've been a leader. But I'm like, fuck this. This is not going to bring me down. What can I do? And I swear to God, you talk about resiliency and defining moments of defeat or setbacks, but it is all a part of the journey. It is all a part of the journey. And you have to just stay true to your values. And I knew how much I helped people, but people didn't know how I did it. And so I met a guy who was in private equity. He was a friend of mine. And he asked me a question. He said, this is now April, May of 2020. And he's like, how do you help people? So I walk them through like how I do it, like the steps I take, and I audit a practice and I get the blueprint, and then it's the foundation of their growth strategies. And then I work with them on a consulting basis and the training courses I had written. And he's like, why don't you build SaaS? I swear to God, I didn't even know what SaaS meant. Software as a service. I was like, what the hell is that? I didn't even know what the word meant. It was kind of funny. And I'm like, I don't know shit about technology, and I don't even know what that is. And what am I going to do? Because I really don't have a job. Like I have money in the bank, but I can't speak. And that's really where I got most of my clients. And it was just me. There wasn't like a marketing team and a bunch of ad dollars. It was not that. And so luckily saved money. And I remember him saying, I need $50,000, literally. And I'm like, what? Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to the bank and just pull out money when now I needed to save every cent? Like cash was king. I don't even know why. I cannot tell you why, but I felt compelled to believe in this person, my friend.
Yeah.
And he had like tons of previous, investments in SaaS companies. And so I just took the leap of faith. I took a leap of faith, and I took like the most massive risk of my life, because I was like, you know what? Fuck it. If this is my last rodeo, by the way, I was like 48, 49. I'm telling my age, you guys. My God. Thank God for all these treatments. I don't know. I hope I look young on here. But
you look great.
I was like, fuck it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because I believe you got to bet on you. Like you have to bet on you. You have to bet on yourself. And I took a bet on myself. And so we start building this technology company in 2020. And it was really based on, 3 core components, which was a learning management system with courses and data analytics, and then a group coaching model. I was able to raise some money. I brought on my co-CEO at the time, who's a dear friend of mine, Isaac. And we launched the company in 21, and within 2 years, it was profitable, and I merged it with another company. And so that was a whole nother beast, which probably requires a whole nother podcast in of itself. I learned a lot during that time, but I left that company a year ago to go back to my roots and to do what I genuinely love to do. And that is, look, SaaS was great, but it's not for me. I wanted to be people facing. I wanted to be out there in the world. I wanted to be a global leader. I wanted this podcast to resonate and give knowledge and insights and strategies and foster this community of people that I could help in a more impactful way.
Well, you did just that. And then what resonated with me that you just said was your back was against the wall and you bet on Terri. And betting on yourself when you have a child to raise is even scarier of a leap. Again, I was blessed to have a front row seat to all of that. And having that front row seat enabled me to get to know your daughter, Sloan, and even film her a few times. And for those of you who haven't seen Sloan, if you haven't followed Terri's social media, she's a mini me of Terri, clearly. And let's talk a little bit about being a single mom in a very, very demanding industry. That's tough juggle right there. A lot of times the kids can get left behind. We've all seen it happen when somebody might choose career over being a parent, or being a parent over a career. But finding that balance as well as you have, there's the master class. So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, and how you find that balance. And maybe somebody can learn a little something, because that is a very, very valuable and almost impossible skill that you have excelled in.
Wow. Thank you, Tim. Look, I don't have balance, to be quite honest. I don't think there is such thing as work-life balance. You manage the best that you can. And it has been a struggle, and the guilt is real. I'm leaving tomorrow for another 10 days. I don't see her a lot. I don't see her as much as I should. And I miss a lot of things. But on the flip side of that, I've raised her to see that you can do and accomplish anything in life that you want through hard work and passion for what you'd love to do, and commitment and drive. And that sacrifice is a real thing. And that she is number one always. She is my why. But bringing her to conferences with me, she's walking around with a business card, Terri Ross Consulting, or the video that she made on YouTube, that still brings tears to my eyes.
Love it. Yeah.
She's my biggest fan. She's my biggest supporter. It's given her a level. I mean, my God, she's over there doing, videos on her makeup tutorials, and she's 11 years old.
Yeah.
And, it's given her the confidence and the attitude and the behavior that I see strength.
Yeah.
And she's wiser beyond her years. And so, look, I know a lot of us are single moms out there, or single fathers, by the way, too. All I do know is that I'm showing her what's possible, and I'm also giving her opportunities that I never had either.
I see it when we were there filming all of those courses, and she was there watching and part of it. And then you could see her, boy, she's intelligent anyway, but see her, you're modeling for her how to go after what you want. And what a beautiful example that is. And just congratulations on raising an amazing young lady. And then before we wrap it up and talk a little bit about the podcast, congratulations again too, because for those that don't know, Terri is semi-recently married. I guess you can still call yourself a newlywed. And the last video I filmed for you just a few months ago, had the opportunity to get to know Elliot personally, and wow. I mean, it takes a strong man to be with a strong woman like you. And it takes a supportive man and an intelligent man and a charismatic man. And he is all of the above. And what a wonderful guy. So congratulations to you in fortifying your family. Another wonderful example for Sloan as well. And he is talented in his own right, Elliot, behind the camera. And just very happy to see you so happy in that arena as well. Again, more balance trying to find with a husband and a stepfather. And listen, I know all about that as a stepfather myself. There's many different things you have to juggle. Yeah. And so, I appreciate you letting our audience get to peer behind the curtain a little bit to know a little bit about who you are and who they should trust when it comes to the one that's going to train them for their practice. And so before we let you go, Terri, we're going to talk a little bit, of course, about how people can find you now for those that might have just stumbled upon this episode. But I do want to thank you for all those years we spent when I was doing your videos and then trying to talk you into doing a podcast. I'm like, you're an amazing communicator. You need to do a podcast. With my radio background, I have a podcasting network and now 26 shows. But like, what, Terri, why are you not podcasting? This took me 2 years to convince you. So finally, it was during, you just mentioned it, at an AmSpa event when I was out there with all the gear and, you would go speak and then you'd come back to the booth and you'd shake hands and meet with everybody. And I stuck microphones in the faces of a lot of these people that were talking to you. And then we even did a few episodes there. And then we launched it on Valentine's Day 2020, right before COVID hit. We are now at the release of this episode, 5 years to the day and 100 episodes. And it has been an honor and a privilege of mine to capture it, record you, edit it, distribute it, and watch you grow. And for you, this dynamic person who was shy in front of the camera 10 years ago, looking at you when you now, let's put a microphone in front of your face, Terri. Now let me see you interview people and watch you grow as an interviewer and then somebody that became very comfortable with a microphone in front of your face and telling your story. I congratulate you on 100 episodes and thanks for letting me tag along with you.
Oh my God, Tim. Well, thank you so much. And, I think that was one of the questions and you did convince me to do it. At the time, I don't know, maybe I dismissed the value of podcasting. I listened to it, but I thought, well, who's going to listen to this? And I wrote down some words because you said, what ultimately led me to say yes and to continue, because doing this requires time and commitment, bringing on experts and being vulnerable and making sure that I am constantly delivering value. But my desire to democratize knowledge is the sole purpose to provide aesthetic professionals like across the country, across the globe now, insights and strategies. So the podcast now, again, has become this global audience with actionable advice, stories from leaders, and it's fostering this community that is my tribe, like that is so passionate, and it allows me to, just to give back. So to everybody who has supported me, that tunes into InTouch with Terri, that has been on the podcast, that listens, that shares, that comments, you are also my why. And I would not be here 5 years later at this 100th episode. Don't make me cry. Without each of you, I'm so blessed to continue on this journey. So thank you so much.
Well, Terri, this has been an amazing journey, 5 years in the making, and we look forward to 100 more episodes and growing Terri's tribe as well, too. And by the way, if you don't mind a humble brag, it was me who came up with the term Terri's Tribe, just going to say. And seeing that tribe grow. I love the alliteration, and I love when people
you did
when people would come up to me at AmSpa 5 years ago. You have this ability to be real and raw and vulnerable on stage, and people just gravitate to that. And they told me that. That's why they love you, because you were just no bullshit. Just here's what it is. Here's how you do it. Here's how I did it. And that's when I knew somebody across the country or the world that doesn't have access to Terri Ross here in front of them at AmSpa, they need to have a way to learn from you. And they have. So congrats.
Thank you. I think one of the things that I really wanted to share too, and I think when we think about connecting with the audience, whether I'm giving a presentation, a keynote, whether I'm training, whatever avenue I'm in. And for those of you that have seen me speak, you know that I am like no bullshit, balls to the wall. I keep it real. I don't lie. I'm authentic. I swear I am so unapologetically me, because I've walked the walk. I've talked the talk. I've done the shoes. I've sold everything for 20 years. I had a med spa. I sold it. I've got to work with practices now 15 years. I lecture all across the country. This is not me patting myself on the back that I'm so amazing. It's not. I've busted my ass to earn these stripes. And when I get notes, like literally handwritten notes from people when I come off stage crying, saying, thank you for letting me believe and giving me the confidence to go back and make hard decisions. Writing to me, thank you for the most brilliant work. Sending me notes like this card, in the mail to say this was the best training of my life. I wish I had you 20 years ago. Telling me that the 13 questions I give to do in a consultation has been astounding to change the trajectory. Like that shit moves me every day when I know I can make an impact and I can make a difference. That is the only reason that I do what I do, right? That I wake up every single day with intention and with purpose to show up better for all of you guys. So this podcast is part of that. And look, there's going to be a ton more. And I'm so blessed. I'm so humbled. I'm so honored that I just get to be there for you guys. So you guys are my tribe, and I'll give you the tribe that you came up with it. Fine, I'll give it to you.
Well, it's a wonderful club to be a part of, and there's many ways to become a part of Terri's Tribe. So before we let you go, Terri, please let our friends on the other side of the speakers know how they can become a part of Terri's Tribe if they're not already.
Oh my God, so many ways. Well, as always, thank you for listening. If you found the story valuable and and it resonated with you, and I hope it did, if you want to share it with your colleagues, please leave a comment. Your words and your comments help me continuously develop new strategies and new seasons for you. And so a couple ways. Obviously, you can go to my website, terrirossconsulting.com. There's a discovery form. Fill it out. Our team would be so honored. I always want to learn about you and learn about where your journey is, and then talk about ways we can support you. I also launched a sales and business mastery mentorship. Over the years, people have said, Terri, why aren't you on Masterclass? And can you mentor me? And it's hard because I'm traveling so much, but it's mentorship. It's a very nominal monthly fee to get access to me directly, about a 90-minute call every month with a curriculum to talk about all of the key things that you guys need to know. So that is the sales and business mastery. You can go to patreon.com. You can find me there and you can always go to my Instagram, DM me, email me, please. I care so much. I want to hear from you directly. And that's Terri@terriross.com. So I love y'all. And thank you for allowing me to do this episode for you.
Well, Terri, all those handles and ways to get in touch with you will be in the episode notes, of course. So you didn't have to write anything down, folks. It'll be right there for you. And then when you're done listening, just scroll down. They'll be right there. Make sure you connect and become a part of Terri's Tribe. Terri, happy 100. And it's a proud journey, friend. Thank you so much for letting me be part of it.
Oh my God. Thank you, Tim, for being on this journey with me. And thanks to all of you. I love you so much. I'll see you guys on the next episode of In Touch with Terri. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terri. Want to take your practice to the next level? Terri Ross has launched her business and sales mentorship for the first time, and it's available to everyone. No more spending thousands on conferences. Get Terry's expert knowledge for a fraction of the cost. It's time to level up your business. Head over to patreon.com/Terri Ross Consulting and sign up now. We'll have the link in the episode notes to get you in on this groundbreaking offer. This is your chance to get ahead, so don't miss it.